The Baggies podcast, giving you the latest news, views and opinions on all things Albion. Now available on YouTube, Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Hello Baggies fans and welcome to another episode of the Baggies podcast. It's great to have you here for yet another one. It's episode 38 today. I'm Louis and I'm going to be a host today. But today, I'm not alone. I'm joined today by former West Bromwich Albion and Republic of Ireland international Simon Cox. So it's fantastic to have him on today. It's going to be a very good episode. He's going to join me for the duration of it in just a second. But yes, if you're new around here, firstly, thank you very much for downloading the episode. If you download it and just listen at home, that's fine. But it's great to have you downloading the episode. That really helps us to, it shows us how many people are listening, really. So make sure you're downloading the episode. Make sure you're following us on all platforms, including Twitter, at the Baggies Pod and at @LouisBent_. Links are in the description. But yeah, without further ado, let's get straight on to hearing from Simon Cox for the duration of this week's episode of the Baggies podcast. Let's go. On this week's episode of the Baggies podcast, I am joined by a very, very special guest. I'm joined by former West Bromwich Albion and Republic of Ireland international Simon Cox. Simon, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
I'm very well. Thanks for having me.
No worries, mate. So you're a Baggies player between 2009 and 2012. You made 65 appearances. You scored 10 goals in your time at Albion. But when you were growing up, was football something that you always wanted to do? Was it something that was always a dream of yours, or was it something that came about quite late?
No, from the age of when I was all in primary school, and I had an older brother, so it was something that we did in the back garden of my parents' house every night, every weekend. It was, as soon as we were able to kick a ball, I was out in the garden doing skills, trying to juggle the ball, that sort of stuff, and it was something that I'd always wanted to do ever since then, really.
Oh, right. So you started your career at Reading, and you were obviously born in Reading as well. How did you first get spotted by Reading? Did you know that they were going to be like at a game that you're playing or something like that?
No, I got really lucky, actually. I was playing Sunday League football with the assistant manager of Reading, his two sons. He had twin sons, and all three of us were playing up an age group for our Sunday League team, and after a few weeks or so, seeing that I could, make it at that level, he said to my parents, come down to the academy, which was a centre of excellence at the time. But he said, come down, let's see what he's got, see if he's got enough to stay, and see what he thinks. And I joined there at the age of 9 and left at the age of 20. So I was there 11 years, and I really enjoyed my time.
And you made your debut, I think, in a game. I think it said against Luton or something like that. I think you must have been 18, 19, something like that at the time. What was it like making your debut? Because obviously that's quite obviously, if you played academy football before, that's quite a big step up. Even if you're just going from the reserves to the first team, that's quite a huge step up. What was that like?
Yeah, absolutely. It was a massive day for me and my family. Obviously, being born in Reading, was a Reading fan all the way through, season ticket holders. Me, my brother, all of his friends, all of my friends, my dad as well. And so just making your debut was just a massive honour for me and for my family. So that was great. But in all honesty, I don't really remember a great deal about the game, apart from the fact that when I came on, I ran around like a blue-ass fly and probably made about 4,000 or 5,000. Probably should have been booked at the time, but I think they gave me a little bit of sympathy knowing it was my debut. So, it wasn't probably my most memorable of games, but, one that in terms of making my debut was, it just makes it for a good memory.
Yeah, definitely. I do have to say, I've seen a lot of players do that on their debut, just come on and start just hounding the opposition. I think it's just the sort of the buzz of making your debut, and you're just sort of excited. You want to impress and you want to get on the ball and make a good impression.
Absolutely, it's one of those. I think you only make one debut, so that in itself is something to be proud of. But ultimately, you tend to don't really remember it, and you literally just run around and you take everything in your stride, and you try not to do something silly, but ultimately you go out there and you try your best, and it makes you that more hungry to go and get more appearances and hopefully have a career.
Yeah, definitely. I think I do have to say you're not the first guest we've had on the podcast who forgets their debut. You'll a lot of professional footballers, you'd be surprised that just don't remember it whatsoever. It's really weird. But you obviously you played for Reading, you went on loan a few times, but then after going on loan to Swindon, you joined there permanently, which is I think where you really kicked on and made your name in the football league. And consistency was something that was really key for you. Obviously, I know that's quite an overused term in football. And you were joint top goal scorer, I think, in the season prior to joining West Brom in the whole of the English 4 leagues. What's it like to keep that consistency up? What's it like trying to keep those goals going in?
Well, I think ultimately it comes down to the team around you as well. I had a team around me at the time who knew how I wanted to play, knew what suited me, crosses into the box. I had a strike partner who was the bigger person of the two of us, and he took all the bumps and bruises and the knocks and the bumps and stuff, and it allowed me to sort of do the other side of things, which was putting the ball in the net. So his work never went unnoticed for me, but to others it might have done. But listen, it was one of those seasons that everything I hit the net, and you don't get those often. So when you do, you have to try and get as many as you can. And I was lucky enough that season I ended up with 29 in the league and 32 in all comps. So I can't argue with the numbers.
That is an astonishing record, to be fair. But you mentioned everything you touch in going in the back of the net. Some things that you hit were actually from God knows where on the pitch, and they were absolute screamers. And I think if I remember rightly, there Ian Wright started a bit of a campaign for you to join a higher division, and obviously you were collecting interest from elsewhere, including West Brom, which we'll go on to talk about in a second. But what was that like, seeing lots of people noticing your goals and noticing your record at that level?
Yeah, I think for somebody like Ian Wright, who came into football late, who sort of played at Sunday League level, played at sort of non-league level, made it all the way to the top of Arsenal or Crystal Palace. For somebody like him who knows what it takes to be successful and go through the levels, it meant a lot. And I actually got sent that clip maybe a few days after he said it. I think it was on TalkSport, and it makes you think that there is abundance of talent in the lower leagues in England and sort of around the world, really. That just because you don't play for a top 4 side in the academies doesn't necessarily mean you haven't got talent. It just means you have to work that little bit harder and bide your time. And listen, some don't make it, some do, and that's just the nature of football. But listen, for somebody like Ian Wright to be speaking about a goal that I scored was something that I'll always remember. I think I'll have to try and find the clips somewhere. I'm sure I've got it somewhere.
Yeah, it was definitely something. It's something that I really love seeing somebody come from a lower division or a lower league and making their trade down there and then trying to build their way up. It's something that's really really good to see. And you made that jump into the Championship. I think Swindon were League One at the time. And you joined in 2009. What was it like when you first joined? How did you hear about that interest quite prior to joining?
Yeah, I had a lot of clubs interested, but I had probably 3 that were very very interested. West Brom being one, Newcastle being another, and Celtic being the other one.
Wow.
And it actually meant at the time there was a lot of managerial vacancies. West Brom had Tony Mowbray, who ended up going up to Celtic. Newcastle had Alan Shearer, who was relegated from the Premier League at the same time, but didn't take the manager's job as well. So there was a lot of managerial vacancies around. So nobody of the 3 clubs that I was interested in, no one had a permanent manager. So it was very interesting to find out who was the one who I was going to go to, because I didn't know who the manager was going to be. And then it got sort of later and later into the summer, and I didn't sign until into July, I think it was. I'd done a few days of pre-season at Swindon as well, so I was on the phone to Dan Ashworth, and he phoned me and he said, "Look, we're appointing our manager tomorrow. I can't tell you who it is, but you know, we want you to come in." And the first question I asked was, "Well, do you want me to come in, or does he want me to come in? Because it's all well and good you wanting me, but if he doesn't want me, there's no point me coming." And he said, no, he wants to bring you in as well. So I was like, fine, no problem. Sat down with Robbie the next day, and sort of, you know, was expecting to sign, and took every day as it was. It was nerve-wracking going into that dressing room, because the dressing room that has just been relegated, but expected to go straight back up into the Premier League that season, with a new manager, with a new philosophy and ethos of the way the team was going to play. But ultimately the team had to be successful and get back into the Premier League. So it was a bit daunting going into the dressing room the first few days, but I was as a confident boy, obviously off the back of the season that I had. So I knew it would be a little bit of time, but I knew I would find my feet and get going as soon as I sort of settled in, really.
And you mentioned that pressure. You mentioned that obviously we just come down to the Championship, and this squad was obviously good enough to go back up. Did you get that pressure from outside the dressing room? Was there a lot of sort of, you know, pressure just building on you to try and make sure that you could get up that first time of asking?
Yeah, I think I'd obviously known West Brom as a club as being that sort of yo-yo club, and but knew the expectation that they weren't a club that was happy to be in the Championship. They wanted to be in the Premier League, and sitting down with Jeremy Peace and having a conversation with him, it was like, we want to be in the Premier League. That's where the glitz and the glamour, the fame and everything else is in the Premier League. And obviously that's where every club wants to be. So you sort of felt that pressure, but we knew that when you look down the Championship, Newcastle probably had the sort of bigger and better squad in terms of individually, but our squad had been together for a long time, added a few additions like myself into it. So we were quietly confident within the dressing room that as long as we performed every week, which majority of the times we did, we had enough in the dressing room to be able to win the games, and ultimately finished second to Newcastle. So that was two that came down, two went straight back up. So that was a good thing.
Yeah, I think it was quite obvious from the outset that Newcastle and West Brom, I think Gianni Zyverlun, who I spoke to a couple of weeks ago, he said that, you know, that it was always us basically in those top couple of positions. But you were obviously brought in by Roberto Di Matteo, who I think will have left by the time you left West Bromwich Albion towards the end of your career, and it'd have been a switch for Roy Hodgson. But how did you find Roberto as a manager? Obviously, he's gone on to great things, Champions League with Chelsea. How did you find him as a manager?
Yeah, I think it was a little bit of a, like, between sort of me and him, I was this bubbly character, sort of really, I love going in every day, love laughing and joking with the players and stuff. So I think he sort of saw me as a bit of I was messing around a little bit, and he sort of told me that I had to be a bit more serious. Which was fine. That's the way, you know, he wanted to be. So that wasn't a problem. But ultimately, it was what I was doing on the pitch was what kept me in the team and made me a better player. But he was fine. You know, we did the same things a lot of the time, and he had his way of working. Him and Eddie Newton, they have their way of working, which is fine for them. But they were a decent sort of staff to work for. Obviously not the best I've worked for, but they were a decent staff, so I can't complain. And obviously what he's done with other clubs is obviously he's gone on to have a decent career.
Yeah, I think it was Giannis Ivory who couldn't remember Eddie Newton's name. He was like, I love this. It was like he was going on about this assistant that Roberto Di Matteo had. He going, I loved him. He was amazing. And I was like, what? Who was it? And he was going, I don't know. He couldn't remember for the life of him what his name was. But you were obviously part of that promotion team, and obviously you mentioned the pressure that there was to get you back up. Well, we did get back up in the end, and we managed to go up with Newcastle, as you mentioned. What was that whole promotion experience like? Because obviously it was quite a big thing to get straight back to the Premier League, and obviously you, on a personal note, going to play in the Premier League is a massive thing.
Yeah, absolutely. It was once it was confirmed, and we went to Doncaster and got the job done, and to be a part of it, to play a significant part of it, to score some goals to help the team and the club get back into the Premier League was something I was really proud of. I've said it numerous times, if I'm being truly honest with myself, I think it came a year it came a year too early for me, because I'd been in League One. I'd had one season in the Championship, and then I was straight into the Premier League. So it was a really big jump for me. So I kind of would have loved to have one more year in the Championship if I was being ultimately selfish. With West Brom and gone on and been the sort of main man and gone on and hit sort of 15, 20, 25 goals and sort of made my name in the Championship, and then gone to the Premier League and had a crack at that. As it was a really big 2 years from League One to the Premier League. And as stuff happens in the Premier League, you bring in new faces, and then you start to sort of move down the pecking order a little bit, and your time on the pitch starts to become few and far between. But listen, I'll never change. I'll never change the journey. I think it was an amazing journey. So I can't complain there.
Yeah, definitely. But you walked into that West Brom dressing room, and of course, over the few years that you were there, you'll have seen a lot of leaders in the dressing room. And I've always sort of wanted to know this, because a lot of podcast guests have mentioned in the past, they're sort of who they saw as a leader, or somebody who was always going to pick them up when they, when their chips were down. Who did you see as a leader? Who did you walk in and know that they were sort of the top dog or commanding or something like that?
It was really, really difficult, because I walked in, the first day I walked in, I sat in the dressing room at the training ground, and I knew like most of the people in there, because obviously I'd watched the Premier League season, and but you sort of drawn to the bigger names of the dressing room straight away. So the Scott Carsons of this world, we obviously had, for a very short time that I was there, Jonathan Greening and Paul Robinson were there before leaving during pre-season. But then you got people like Jonas Olsson. Now, this guy's the most friendliest man ever, but would kick lumps out of you in training every day because he wants to win. But would then, as soon as you walk off the training pitch, he's the nicest guy in the world again. So, and that was fine. But then obviously, you have Jimmy, James Morrison and Brunty who have been at the club for a very, very long time, and obviously who are now coaches at the club, which is great. You can't not be looking at those kind of guys as well, who know exactly what the club's all about, know exactly where the club should be and the way it should be run. And that's how the dressing room ran with the senior players, and that's how everybody who was new came in. They knew that the expectation was led by the senior players.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I think there's a lot of in that side. I know perhaps before you joined, there was obviously Greening and Robbo, but there's such a wealth of experience in that side, and there was lots of players who were all perhaps of a similar age, all pulling in the same direction. I think so. Playing in the Premier League is obviously different experience than what you were used to before. Obviously, you mentioned that jump; it's quite sudden. It's quite sudden, of course, but you played in the Premier League. What was that whole experience stepping out into the top flight?
Yeah, well, I actually done ankle ligaments while I was away on pre-season tour. We went to Slovenia. I think Slovenia, I think it was, and I did ankle ligaments, and then I was at a race to get fit for the first game. We had Chelsea away, and it was one of those that it was so like, because I'd done my ankle ligaments, I was in such a frame of mind that I needed to get back for this first game, because first year in the Premier League, didn't want to miss any game. Never been to Stamford Bridge, didn't know what the dressing rooms were like or anything else like that. So I really, really wanted to go. So I was like, that was my determination to sort of get fit for that, and not miss any game through any injury or anything, and just be ready for every game. And then obviously I may end up making my Premier League debut. Came on for 20 minutes or so in that game. It wasn't a great game. I think we got beat 5 or 6. So I don't think it was great, but no, it was as soon as I made my Premier League debut, I was like, this is unbelievable. Although it again, similar to my debut, it was very much don't really remember the game too much, but it was. I remember being there, and trying to take in as much as I could, but not too much went in, I don't think.
Yeah, and it was the Premier League season. Obviously, it was such a hoping that we wouldn't be that yo-yo team again, and it was actually that season that sort of led us to continue in the top flight, which is something that's really fantastic, and it's something that obviously it's fantastic that you were a part of. But in your time at West Brom, obviously feel free to reel off a list, because this is quite a broad question, but who would you say the best player that you played with, like ability wise, on the pitch at West Brom?
See, it's really strange because I never played with him, but he was still part of the squad, and he didn't. I don't think I ever played with him, but trained with him a few times. Was Borja Valero.
Oh, right, yeah. Gianni Seiverloon picked the same one. He picked Borja as well.
Yeah, but like he was just obviously you can see what he's gone on to do, and I remember having a chat with Dan Ashworth a few years back, and I remember he said about him that outside of Messi and Ronaldo in La Liga, he had the best stats. So I mean, and then he's obviously I don't know if he's still at Inter Milan now, but yeah, for what he's obviously gone on and done, but he was unbelievable. Just in training, you could tell he was like that sort of Spanish technical tiki-taka sort of player, and unbelievable talent. But just for some reason or another, never really got that opportunity to play. So he was good, but I think you've got a picture of him behind you. Peter Odemwingie was incredible as well. Like as a centre forward, left foot, right foot, head, and everything he did that season. We were there. He was incredible, and I think his goals alone pretty much kept us in the league that year.
Yeah, definitely. Peter, it was such a weird one because he just came out of nowhere. He wasn't a player that
Lokomotiv Moscow he came from.
Yeah, over in Russia. Like he just came here, and we were like, we don't really know. We've had this a lot of times with strikers. We just thought we don't really know what we're getting here. Like obviously you proved yourself in English football. People knew who you were, but he was just an unknown quantity, and he was one of those. I do have to say, very few of those sort of foreign strikers coming in that have really paid off for us. So yeah. And Borja Valero, it's great to see two ex-players who have picked him as their best player. I think Gianni mentioned something along the lines of it was a physical thing because he's quite small and quite
small, quite slight, but maybe it might have been that, but I think when you're that technical and you can keep the ball, like you look at I guess the people that were keeping him out the Spanish squads of Xavi, Iniesta, and Busquets, they're not all the most physical of stature. So that's why he probably fits in in Spain and in Italy than he does in the UK, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's probably it. I think he did prove he's got the technical ability. So surprised he didn't get more of a chance at least to prove himself. But you played in front of the West Bromwich Albion fans for a few years, and you played at the Hawthorns quite a few times, obviously, and away games as well. How did you find the West Bromwich Albion fans as a whole? What was their atmosphere that they built up like?
Yeah, great. I thought they were great with me. Obviously, just as somebody who'd come from the lower leagues, and all he did was try hard and try to score as many goals as he could. They were great with me, so obviously I have to thank them for that. But I think they were demanding, obviously, expected to get up first and foremost into the Premier League. But then once they're there, they're always a little bit like on the edge, just in case we're on the end of a bit of a slapping, like we were at Chelsea and Man City away and stuff. But for the most part, I'd say they were really good. Always always cheering the boys on, but again, probably the most thing or the best thing I could probably say, they were demanding, which made the players, I think, respect it and
Yeah.
made them want to do more.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's what a lot of players have found playing for the Albion, that they'll always get behind you, but there's always that sort of sense of insecurity that we might just get slapped 6 or 7-0 or something like that. I think that's the same even now. It doesn't. Honestly, it doesn't change. But you played for Republic of Ireland. You're the first guest that we've had on who's represented their country at senior level. You made your debut, I think it was against Northern Ireland. I think you'd have scored in that game as well.
Yep.
What was it like making your debut internationally? Because that's obviously a fantastic achievement.
Yeah, incredible. Again, similar to like my debut, it was a great time for me, a great time for my family. Obviously, with my Irish connections, I had, I think, 15, 20 tickets for the game. Just all wanted to go and enjoy being in and around it. So that was amazing. And I was on another podcast yesterday, and I said, when I got the call that I was going to get into the squad, I'd already booked my holidays. So the press guy at the time at West Brom, John Simpson, he came up to me and he said, like, we've just had a phone call to say that they're releasing your name as part of the squad. And I turned around to him, I was like, Simo, I've booked my holidays. What do I do? And he said, well, it's up to you. I mean, you can either say you don't want to join up, or you go on holiday, or you can cancel your holidays and join up. So many appearances I'm ever going to get, so I might as well cancel my holidays, and off I went. But I actually thought I was only going to go there for just to observe, just to be around it, because I hadn't been selected before. I thought it was just going to be one of those times where you go, you sort of meet people, and it was where the manager turned around and said, look, we like you, but we're a little bit unsure. We're going to bring you in for a little bit and see how you get on. But after about 2 or 3 days training, I got a tap on the shoulder saying that you start in the Northern Ireland game. And I was like, wow, like, yeah, let's take that on. End up, I think we won 4 or 5, and I ended up scoring. So that was amazing. Then end up playing in the Scotland game after that as well, which we won. And then went on to Macedonia and Italy, and beat Italy and drew with Macedonia. So it was a really good little 4 games for me at the end of the season to finish off what would have been a really good season for me personally.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, it's always a fantastic moment seeing a West Brom player being called up for their country, whatever country it is. Obviously, we got Sam Johnson in the England squad at the moment, which is obviously something that Albion fans, I know, especially, will just, they'll always keep an eye on what the international players are doing during the break. And you played at Euro 2012 as well, didn't you, for Republic of Ireland, which obviously wasn't particularly successful, unfortunately, for Ireland going out of the group stage. But what was the Euro experience like? Because obviously that's a real achievement to go to an international tournament.
Yeah, wow, what an experience! Probably the best experience of my life in terms of football. The the day you get the call, I was in the car. I can't remember where I was going, but I was in the car. Got a phone call from the manager, and he said, "Look, you're in the squad to go to the Euros." And then, like, you just sort of quietly celebrate in the car. You're sort of fist pumping in the car, like going, "Yeah, like this is going to be amazing." And then we played played a couple of tune-up games. Where did we went over to Italy in Montecatini. Had a little parade and things there, which was quite nice. Played another friendly game. Can't remember who that was against. And then we flew into Poland. Got to our hotel base. Had our open training session the next day. Did the sort of opening ceremony thing, which was all a little bit bizarre for me, because obviously I'd never been to a major tournament, even been to watch or anything else, so I didn't really know what everything was going on. And then you sort of build up to the games, and you build up 2 days before, and then all of a sudden the lobby at the hotel, because they find out where you're staying.
Yeah.
And you probably know yourself, but the Irish fans, they're not the most quiet of people. No. So as soon as they get a few jars into them, that's it. The songs start coming out, and it doesn't matter how many floors up you are, you can hear it. So yeah, 3 days before the game, they start to arrive. 2 days before a game, a bit of buzz goes around. 1 day before the game, and then all of a sudden the bar area and the lobby area and the food areas and that around the hotel are all packed full of green jerseys and lads singing their songs and stuff. And then the day of the game, it's like, don't leave your room. You literally can't leave your room, because otherwise you wouldn't be able to get through the crowd. We went for a walk, and we pretty much had to have like a police escort just to go for a walk, so that you wouldn't be getting taken and taking photos and stuff like that. So, but then you go to the games, and listen, the games went the way they did because we had Italy and Spain in our group.
Yeah,
and they were the two finalists in the whole competition. So it was going to be a tough one. Then throw in Croatia as well. So it was it was like the group of doom, if you want to call it that. And then, but listen, going there, being a part of a Euros, playing in all three as well, was something I'll never forget.
Yeah, it was a really good tournament actually. Was it the Poland and Ukraine one?
Poland and Ukraine, yeah.
Yeah. It was a really good tournament. Not perhaps from an England's perspective, getting knocked out on penalties as per usual. But you played, obviously you mentioned there against you played Spain, you played Italy, which obviously fantastic players playing for them. But across your career, who would you say the best player that you've played against was?
See, people ask me this one all the time, and it's very, very hard. Because of the like especially when you play international football, because you come up against which is meant to be the best of the best. And as I mentioned there with Spain and Italy, and you come up against Sergio Ramos and PK and Busquets and Xavi and Iniesta, Fabregas, Casillas, just in the Spain team. And then obviously go to Italy and you go to Pirlo, people like that, and Buffon and stuff like that. But then when my last appearance was Portugal, so Ronaldo was in that team. I played against England as well, and you have Gerrard and people like that in the team as well. So I think it's so hard to name just one. I've just been very, very lucky to come up against some of, especially in a really golden generation, I came up against probably some of the best that's been around.
Yeah, definitely. There's certainly some.
I named quite a few there, so you could take any of them.
Honestly, there are some massive names on that list. Simon, are you a shirt swapping person?
I am. I do have a few shirts. Yeah.
Who have you got in your shirt collection that you like?
So I was again really lucky. I got so I have a Ramos shirt. I have a Casillas shirt. I have a Pirlo shirt. Um, who else have I got? It's even in the Premier League, I was swapping for fun. Like, I don't know what I'd love to know what they've done with mine, but yeah, I can't imagine that mine is put up in their houses. But I think I've got a Bonucci shirt as well. In there, I've got a Yaya Toure, I've got a Tevez. Yeah, I got a few nice ones in there.
That's quite a collection, crikey. I mean, I would if I was a footballer, I wouldn't care. I wouldn't really be bothered what they did with mine. I'd be like, thank
No,
you.
I don't care what they do with mine.
Yeah, I'd be like, thank you, Sergio. I'm having my shirt. Obviously, Simon, the listeners won't know what time or how we're doing this, but what at the moment it's probably the earliest interview that I've ever had to do for the podcast. It's about 8 o'clock in the morning for me. What time is it over there where you are?
7 o'clock in the evening.
7 o'clock in the evening. Now, Simon, if the listeners don't know, you are currently playing over in Australia, and you're playing for Western Sydney Wanderers, who are doing quite well in the league at the moment. You're second, and it looks like you're chasing down. I think is it Central Coast Mariners at the top
That's
of the top of the league. How's that going for you at the moment?
Yeah, we're in good form at the minute. We've won our last 3 games on the bounce, so that's good. We're starting to get in our stride now, and we're about just halfway through the season. So we've got another 13 games to go. We've got another game on Friday night away in Melbourne. So that's probably going to be our biggest game, I think, so far this year. They're probably the best team here in the division at the minute. They've won their last 5. So yeah, that'll be a good test for us, and hopefully we can continue on our way. It works a little bit differently over here. Even if you finish first, that doesn't necessarily mean you win the league. So you come first, and then first and second have a little bit of a break, and then it's 3, 4, 5, and 6 go into a playoff. The winner of those 2 games play 1 and 2, and then it's the winner of those go into a final, and the winner of that one then goes and wins it. So you could finish 6th and then end up winning the whole thing. So it's a bit different, but it's been great since I've been here. I've really enjoyed it. I've been here just over a year now, and it's been the sun's shining today, so I can't complain too much.
Yeah, and you've got Graham Dorrans on your team at the moment, which is obviously something Albion fans might not know. How's he doing? Is he all right?
He's doing really well, mate. He is. He's settled in really nicely. Obviously, he's got a friend of his, Kenny Miller, who's our assistant manager. So that's a nice one for him. But yeah, I remember he sent me a message before coming out, and he was like, "I'm signing. I'm really looking forward to it. Bringing the missus and the kids and that over here to help him settle in and stuff." And I think they've settled in really nicely, and that's always a big thing as well. When the family comes over, you want to make them settled as quick as you can. And I mean, we're pretty much free of COVID over here, so we're able to sort of come and go as we please. So that makes it a little bit easier for people to enjoy life over here right now.
Yeah, I saw on your Instagram this morning that it was like the rules were lifting and easing, and there was like something like no masks here and there and stuff like that. And have you got fans in the ground over there?
Yeah, we're 50%, but as of Monday, we're 100% capacities again. So I know, yeah, I can imagine that kills everyone to hear, but no, it's we've actually done really well over here. I mean, we're up to. We had no cases or no locally acquired cases for like 60 days or something like that, and then one was in hotel quarantine, but that was fine. And then since that day, we've had no cases at all. So we've touched wood, we carry on that way, and we can continue the way that we are.
Wow, that is a dream at the moment for
There's
us.
something to be envious of. I know that.
Yeah, Australia and New Zealand. We're looking at you and thinking, what on earth are we doing here? But yeah, Simon, obviously we wish you the best of luck for the rest of the season. Hopefully you can go on and reach some real success with Western Sydney. But yes, it's been a pleasure having you here on the Baggies podcast. I'm sure lots of Albion fans have enjoyed hearing your time. But yeah, thank you very much for coming on.
Pleasure, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Wow, what a great experience that was to hear from Simon after his fantastic time at West Bromwich Albion, and of course at the Euros with Republic of Ireland, Reading, Swindon. You know, there's so many different experiences that Simon's had at different tiers of football and different levels of the game, and it's obviously fantastic to hear from him. So, but a massive thank you to Simon for joining me on this week's episode. It's really a pleasure. If you want to go and drop him a follow on Twitter, Instagram, see what he's up to now at Western Sydney Wanderers, and make sure you go and check that out via the link in the description. But if you're new around here, for the Baggies podcast, make sure you're subscribing to us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Follow us on Twitter at @LouisBent_ or at the Baggies Pod. Links in the description. Make sure you drop a comment. Just drop some in a nice review on Apple Podcast or a nice little comment on YouTube or Spotify or something like that would be lovely. But yeah, it's been a pleasure having you here for the duration of this one, and I'll see you straight away in the next one. It's weird, we don't really talk much anymore. We've got so many fantastic guests, but yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye, Baggies fans. Enjoy your week. Bye bye.